Good afternoon, welcome to Destination Newry's special GAA show. With us today we've got two very special guests again. We've got Cathal Murray, who's head of PE in St Coleman's College and was also a part of the Down winning team in 1991. And we've got John Clarke, who was also part of the Down team in 2010 when we got the All-Ireland finals. You're very welcome, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
Just right, boys, mention the fact that both of you obviously have played in the red and black, and the weekend was a disappointing weekend for us. And I know yourself, John, we'll start with yourself, probably an interesting year for you in the fact that this is probably the first year you weren't involved as a player with the Down team in the last decade. Was it? How did you see the game on Saturday, or was it more difficult watching it from the stand than as a player?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt it was a strange sort of feeling, going down to Croke Park just to watch the guys playing. But I fully expected Down to win on Saturday, and probably the fact that they were comprehensively beaten was more disappointing maybe than anything else. And performance in particular, as I'm sure the guys know, probably wasn't up to scratch, and as a result Mayo won the game probably quite easily in the end, and it was very, very disappointing day all round.
Yeah, and Cathal, yourself, how did you see the game on Saturday? Obviously it was, it was for 15 minutes. I think it was 1-4 to 1-4, and then the second Mayo goal seemed to just we seemed to capitulate, after it.
Yeah, nib and tuck for most of the first half there. The whole cliche that goals win games, and that's the way it turned out. I think we had difficulty getting to grips with the movement of the Mayo forward line. Probably loose in some ways and expecting men, I suppose, maybe marking space as opposed to going man for man. They had us in the break and we were caught maybe chasing shadows, and certainly, as much as Callum's goal kind of kept us in touch and was vital in sort of prolonging the agony maybe to some degree, but certainly we didn't push on from that and paid for it in the end.
Yeah, and James said after the game, any limitations and weaknesses you have are cruelly exposed in Croke Park, and there's no doubt that a couple of times this year, if we look back through the season, with the National League semi-final, John, as well against Cork, we get exposed as well in Croke Park.
Yeah, unfortunately that's the way it is. Once you go to Croke Park, the country's eyes is on you, and any weaknesses is talked about up and down the length of the country. Was on the flip side, if you're playing well, the same happens. But I think the wide open spaces of Croke Park, as Cathal alluded to there, was maybe guys marking space and maybe not picking men up, and as a result Mayo were easy to find the net, and probably could have a couple more goals as well.
Yeah, and we look back through the year, Cathal, in January, if we look back at the season, there was a lot of criticism fired at the Down team and maybe the management team, but when we look back through the season in the National League, we had terrific wins away to Mayo, we had a great win away to Laois, we beat the All-Ireland champions in Newry in Dublin, and beat Donegal, and ended up in the National League semi-final and also an Ulster final. So a last date of an All-Ireland, an Ulster final and a National League semi-final, maybe with the players that have left, and James has never alluded to the players that have left, but maybe the players that have left, was that an overachievement for us this year, Cathal?
Yeah, people have written us off saying we weren't the team that we were in 2010, but you got to realise that how many players have gone. John himself sitting beside me here, who would have been an asset on Sunday for us. We needed maybe a big man in the full forward line, a target man, and certainly there would have been a place for the likes of John. We've lost so many other players. I mean, you're talking maybe 10 to 12 players who were involved in that 2010 campaign, and certainly you can't really say it was a bad season. We say we regained our Division 1 status, All-Ireland semi, our quarter-final, and some great results along the way. It wasn't bad for the players that we have, considering who we have lost.
And of course, just obviously in the news today, in the Irish news, speculation over James' future. As imagine, is there any outstanding candidates, John? Obviously James is still in the job; he hasn't declared his future. But is it wrong? Should we be looking at a change at this stage, or?
I think it's hard to know, Stevie. It is early days, and you're going to be talking 3 or 4 days after such a defeat, and I'm sure James and all the management team are hurting, and we'll probably sit down over the next couple of weeks and see where the future lies. But from a personal point of view, James has done tremendously well. His 3 years in charge. When you consider when James took over Down, we're just after getting promoted from Division 2 after maybe 2 or 3 years in Division 3. Now Down are a recognised First Division team. They've got to the first Ulster final in maybe 8 years, and also played in Croke Park numerous times, whereas before I think when he played in Croke Park once between 2001 and 2008, so he has done well. But again, it'll be down to James, the county board, to sort that out. And regarding people maybe interested in the job, who knows? I'm sure there's names out there that people will be speculating about, but there'll be nothing confirmed, I'd say, for the next few weeks anyway.
And it is a tough job, Cal. You know, management at any level is a tough job, but particularly at inter-county level, where it seems to be a results-driven business, and if you don't get them, unfortunately, there's no hiding places. You know.
Yeah, the old cliche: the players win games and managers lose them. But certainly, you know, James was in a difficult position last year. He felt he needed to freshen things up, and it was a case either he went or some of the backroom staff, and he got rid of Brian McIver and Paddy Talley and brought in Aidan O'Rourke. It's hard to know whether we've made as much progress as we had done over the previous two. I think Aidan was brought in maybe to kind of sort of the defensive end of our team. Traditionally, down football is all attacking and going for the win. We didn't see much of that in Croke Park last week, and that's some of the disappointing point. You know what I mean? Traditionally, down teams come up to Croke Park full of confidence and can't wait to get on the field to express themselves. But there wasn't that I don't like using the word arrogance, but that just sort of carefree attitude and going and playing football. It wasn't there. And defensively, I don't think we're any further on than we were under, say, Talley and McIver as training the team. And
I think we'll have to be real too as well, gentlemen. When we look at the four teams that are left in the semi-final, they're four provincial winners, and they're probably in at the minute the four best sides in Ireland. Would we agree there, John? Would we?
I would say you're right, Stevie. Yeah, Kerry probably would have been in that group, but
yeah,
obviously after Donegal's defeating them on Sunday, they no longer are. You look at Dublin there; they haven't really played well all year so far, and they're still in All-Ireland semi-final. So there's more to come from them. Mayo, a lot of people probably had their doubts over Mayo before Saturday, but I'm sure after the defeat to get down, that Mayo will be there or thereabouts as well. You know, come they'll be up against it, no doubt, against Dublin, but they fancy their chances as well. And then obviously you have Cork, many people's favourites, and probably rightly so after the show they put on Sunday against Kildare. A lot of people maybe thought Kildare could cause a surprise, but Cork are just so strong. There's so much strength and depth, it's unbelievable, you know, and just the power and pace of a lot of them players. I think they are the team to beat.
And 2 years ago, Cal, Mickey Hart alluded to the fact that no provincial winner had made it through to the semi-final, and this year it's gone the opposite, you know. And I wonder is that a sign of things to come? Have the qualifiers run their course? You know, are teams too fatigued when they get to the stage? You know, what's your view on that? You know?
I think you would have seen maybe that there were, you know, the miles were on the clock last Sunday. You know, I think we've gone a few weeks running there. We were tired, we were jaded, and coming off, you know, a bad Ulster final defeat, and then, you know, it wasn't the same team. But I think what's important to bear in mind is those four teams who are left, they're all nearly masters at the darker arts of Gaelic football now. And we are maybe naive going into the game thinking that we maybe were going to be allowed to play football. I mean, the example of Conor Lavery later on, where he'd offloaded, was going for the return, and was just bottled up, and ended up the two of them getting a yellow card. I mean, they just pulled and dragged. There was tactical fouling, and it's a characteristic of all those four teams who have sort of the way the modern game is nowadays, that you won't be allowed to play football. While we maybe continue and are naive to think that our brand of football will get us through.
Yeah, it's true. That's a very good point, Cal, as well. You know, the game, I suppose, like all games, it evolves, you know, and systems come around and go, you know, and who knows what lies ahead. But looking ahead to the weekend, obviously, you know, in the club championship, gentlemen, we have a big weekend ahead, and Cathal, you're involved this year, obviously, with Saul, managing Saul intermediate side, and John, you're obviously involved yourself in playing the senior championship, and myself personally have an interest in training Mayo Bridge. How do you see the senior games going this week, John? If we start with the Mayo Bridge Savile game, how do you see that going yourself?
Yeah, there's a few interesting games ahead. Bridge Savile against a local derby. I think the Bridge on their day, you know, are still one of the teams to beat. There's Bridge, Burn, Kilcoo, and although the Bridge probably haven't won a championship now in 2 or 3 years, that'll maybe get that hunger back in the team. And they've been going well. They've a lot of boys in America, 4 or 5 top players in America, and they still seem to be able to put together a lot of good league results there recently. So Bridge Savile, it's always a local derby, but I think the Bridge will have too much, especially if Danny Hughes isn't going to be fit, and you'll have Benny and Garvey coming back for Mayo Bridge. So 3 or 4 point win for the Bridge there.
And staying with yourself, John, obviously a club you know very well. You're near neighbours Longstone. They play on Friday evening, an interesting game against Burn with the return of their old manager Frank Dawson. You know, how do you see that game pan out? Both sides met last year in close encounter.
Yeah, I think it's probably the pick of the game, Stevie. Frank Dawson obviously is taking over Burn now, but last year the Stone probably could have beat Burn, you know, up in Newry that night. Burn pulled away in the end, but Longstone have had a couple of good results recently, and Gregor McCartan has been going very well, and apparently they're flying fit, and they've Ambrose Rogers and Mark Pullen coming back in as well. Burn are county championship, they will be favourites, But I think Longstone will put it up to them.
Yeah, and Cathal, maybe moving on to the other two games, Kilcoo-Castlewellan, local derby. Castlewellan won in the league a few weeks ago. You know, maybe a blip. I think it was maybe one of the only blips Kilcoo have had this year. How do you see that going?
Kilcoo once again are there to be. They're up there along with the Bridge and Burn. Certainly would be one of my favourites for the championship. Play, you know, once again a sort of a tough defensive type of football and break out. Use Laverty very well. They played a system which is very effective, and I don't think they'll have much ball with Castlewellan.
Yeah, and your own club, Cathal Clonduff, up against Bryansford, a team again that have a lot of men missing and a lot of men you know, across the water. How do you see that going, Cathal?
Clonduff should have too much for them. Jason Brown's coming back. He hasn't played back in the last few league games, I think. So you'll have Arthur McConville maybe looking to. I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to get in there. Maybe could have got a run at Croke Park or at some stage for the down setup. So he's going well for Clonduff. You have Darren O'Hagan, who had a great game for down on Aidan Carr as well, so I expect Clonduff to come out now. Yeah,
and then we've got what I would call the last chance games. Obviously the structure in Down John's changed this year in that it's become a backdoor system, and the backdoor obviously comes into action this weekend with the 4 or the 8 losers from the first round playing off on each other in 4 games. And your own club, John, and Rake's involved that again, the Shamrocks. How have you been going, or you know, is confidence up for Saturday?
Well, Kilcoo gave us an awful hammering in the first round proper, and we were always going to be up against Kilcoo, but Kilcoo are that step above us at the minute, and we've been going so in the league. You know, we have lost a lot of players and a couple of injuries now at the minute as well, but it is always good to get a second chance in the championship, and championship week's always that wee bit special. So Shamrocks, I've picked up a couple of wins there late as well, so it'll not be an easy match for us. We should be expected to win it, and hopefully we will, but it'll be a close match, and it'll be good to get a championship win if we can at all.
Yeah, and there's some interesting ties there, John. Leitrim, Ballyholland, maybe could there be a shock there? Could
be a shock. Leitrim, I think, are unbeaten 9 or 10 games, and they'll have Liam Doyle back on form as well, and Ballyholland are sort of team that, you know, on their day can beat anybody, but on the flip side, you know, anybody can beat them as well, so it should be an interesting match as well. I think maybe Ballyholland maybe to shade it.
And Killeigh for Straver, possibly an upset? No,
can't say it.
No,
can't say it. Straver fairly strong, going well at the top of the table in 2, so no.
But Downpatrick Lough Island, local derby,
yeah,
again, a hard
not
one
to play
call.
for that. Turley's back in for Downpatrick as well. You know, you could find a draw in that game actually with Dan back for Lough Island. That's a tough one to call now.
Yeah, well again, you know, at the weekend we're going to lose 4 sides from the senior championship, you know, and that's the nature of the beast this year in the senior championship. But the intermediate, moving on to the intermediate, obviously we start off with your own club at the minute, Cal Saul. Things are going well for you. You're sitting top of Division 3, albeit with a few games played more than the team below you. But you're up against Tullylish this weekend. How do you see that game panning out?
Tullylish should be absolute favourites for that match.
Yeah, of course.
We wouldn't stand a chance really if we're hardly going to turn up at all. No, looking forward to it. It's a big step up from a team we were playing Division 4 football last year to the top of 3. We're sort of disappointed with the league structure's gone, that we probably nearly would have been automatically promoted to 2, but with the restructuring. So we're up there, we'll be competing for the league title. But looking forward to Tullylish. We've had we drew with them the first game, our home match, our second game of the league, I think it was. They turned us over on the return fixture. So once again, they're strong, traditional team who have been there, won it, and have a lot of strength and depth. So we're not underestimating the task that's ahead of us, but we're not just going to turn up.
And you're enjoying the challenges,
loving it.
Yeah.
Great bunch of lads. They're just probably the easiest team ever I've worked with. No egos about the place, lads. Just try and get on with it. Very professional in their approach and have responded to what I've been trying to achieve with them. So no, delighted and
brilliant.
We'll continue.
Good to see. And John, Sean Moore's taken over at a club you would know yourself. Obviously you're now engaged to St John's lady, so St John's play Darracross this weekend. Sean he's given the club a bit of a lift, hasn't he?
He has. No, the guys down there have a lot of time for Sean, a lot of respect from him. He probably hasn't got the luck to have tough few results, or have been losing matches by maybe 1 or 2 points, but his training's been very, very good by our reports, and he is going to give this intermediate championship a good rattle, so I think they'll have too much for Darracross.
And if we just run through some of the other games, Breda carried off. Breda riding high top of Division 4, Cal carried off Division 2. Is it too big a gap for Breda, is it?
I think it's too big, but at the same time, you know, they're coming out with a bit of confidence. They're going well, whereas on the other side, Cardiff wouldn't be, you know what I mean, haven't had great results of late, so you could see a shock there.
Yeah, and Cal, stay with yourself. Clanabana, Banbridge versus Bosco. Bosco, have threatened with their underage teams in the past, but it just doesn't seem to materialise at senior level for them.
No, and at the same time, Clanabana really haven't been going very well in two either. So once again, Bosco probably got into it with nothing to lose.
Yeah.
We played them last week in the league, and they're a useful side. They got things going.
And Annaclone, Glasdrumman, John. You've played against Annaclone this year, and you would know Glasdrumman well from obviously being one of the Mourne clubs.
Yeah,
both teams going okay.
Yeah, probably Annaclone be probably the favourites for the Intermediate Championship at the minute. They're top of Division 2, and we played them in Annaclone. They're very, very impressive now. Though we beat them, but they're a very strong physical team. They've Ben McCard coming back in there as well. They've Gary McCard at midfield, and they've a couple of good forwards and the Fagans and that. Glasdrumman probably top of Division 3, so their tails will be up as well, and probably in Conor Harrison, they're probably one of the form forwards and down at the minute. So it should be an interesting match, but I just think that Annaclone's experience and craft should have too much for Glasdrumman.
Yeah, and again, that's another man, Tom Potter, managing Glasdrumman, going back to a club that he'd be very familiar with, Annaclone, and again a team that I maybe would have my eyes on would be Warren Point for this Intermediate Championship. Cathal, obviously, Ross McGarry, you would have taught Ross and St Coleman to know the talent that he possesses, and they're up against Glen. They'll have too much for Glen, will they?
It should have it. I don't think all as well. Warren Point at the minute, I think Kieran McCartan's maybe missing the championship as well, and the soccer season has started, or is close to starting, so I think that may have an influence. But at the same time, I'm not sure how Niall McParland's come out of last weekend's game. If Niall's not playing, it'll just be one-way traffic, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and the last two games are meant Drumgaff, what he called Drumgaff, John?
Probably fancy Drumgaff, although Adicall have picked up a couple of results of late, but Drumgaff should be too experienced for Adicall.
And Ballymorton should beat Ardglass, John, yeah?
Yeah, it should be a cricket squad.
Yeah. And the Junior Championship, funny, Oculus Dufferin, obviously a famous win last weekend against Newry Mitchells, and obviously a fantastic win for them, Obviously being a Newry Mitchells man myself, it wasn't a great result to see, but you have to hold your hands up. They play at Haderg this weekend. They have a big chance of reaching a junior semi-final, which would be a huge achievement, man, for the club. Cal, be a huge achievement.
Great to see. I mean, you love everybody loves the underdog. I mean, Oculus Finn there have been battling maybe numbers wise and feeling stuff like that. Great to see him sticking at it, and great to see him getting through. If they could. And
John, it's hard to look past Dundrum and Paul McComiskey for the junior championship, is it?
Yeah, no, I think they're unbeaten all year. McComiskey has been a huge addition. He hasn't missed a match, I don't think, and Dundrum probably have never got the fullness out until this year, and as a result now they're getting results every week, and will probably be fancy themselves for the junior championship. Yeah,
and I suppose when we talk of Dundrum, talking to the Drum lad last year, and he was telling me about the effects emigration had on their club. That I think at one stage they had 16 senior players available to play senior football in reserve, and I think they ended up then pulling the reserve team out. But emigration, man, has hit us hard, especially in this area, and it seems to be, John, in Mourne in particular. I know myself, I spent 3 years with the Kingdom, and I know in my last year, the team had changed totally from the team that I had in my first year, with the guys that are leaving for Australia. But maybe tell us the inside, how hard has it hit the club?
Yeah, it's been very tough now. I think we counted there a few weeks back, we have 18 players in Australia alone that could maybe play senior football for us, and 3 or 4 years ago a lot of them guys had been about home, and our seconds team been fairly strong. This year our seconds team's practically been non-existent. We've been lucky to get 15 players on the field, and as a result of that now a lot of guys that maybe previously wouldn't be getting on seconds teams are now pushing for senior starts for us, and it is difficult. And morale around the club, if you get a defeat there, boys are always talking about the guys that are in Australia, and then if you get a couple of injuries as well, your numbers are really, really depleted, and even for training it's very difficult at times. You have only 13, 14 guys training, but it's a sign of the times, Steve, and we have been used to it now, and hopefully maybe if the economy changes the next couple of years, these guys will come back. We aren't the only club affected, we have Adicall, Ballymorton, lads away as well, even Leitrim I think are affected, and Dundrum as well in particular, but it's a sign of the times, and we just have to get on with it, and that's the way it is.
Have you been affected much yourself, Cathal, with Saul?
No, one midfielder left after the first game, that's about it really, and maybe one of the reasons why we're going so well is that we would have a fairly strong panel, a very young side saying that now. This last number of games, you probably as many as 8 or 9 of last year's minor team finishing games. So the fact that we have a fairly strong panel and good numbers at training means that we're able to transfer that form then to games. Yeah,
well, I know myself personally from the Mayo Bridge thing, John. You mentioned the 5 guys in America. The America thing's a different kettle of fish because it's more a temporary thing. Guys go out there maybe more so for what you would call a working holiday. America yourself, Cathal, in the past, had you?
Yeah, I had 4 summers in Chicago back in the late 80s.
And you can't blame a young fella, Cal.
No, and particularly this year. I mean, the fact that the restructuring of the league, there's very little pressure on clubs. So guys see it maybe, okay, we're sitting mid-table, or there's maybe not a lot to play for this year, and we can take the States trip this year and maybe stay at home next year, which means that, you know what I mean, that you'll have a stronger, maybe a club football on view next year. But I wouldn't stand any lads' way. I mean, I loved it as much as, the guys maybe who were staying behind, or you're coming back in from the States and getting back into the team. Those guys maybe does cause a wee bit of animosity with the lads who are at home, but it's a wonderful opportunity. The whole social aspect of the thing. I mean, some of the players I played with in Chicago, and I just actually like to remember Maureen O'Hagan, who sadly passed away. I'm going out to the funeral now on Saturday. It was a lifelong Clonduff woman, wolf tones to the core, and staunch down as well. So she sadly passed away. But football is strong in the States, and there's really not a lot we can do to keep players at home if they want to go.
Yeah. And John, summer yourself in?
Yeah, the summer in New York and the summer in San Fran. So I think where San Fran's where all the bridge lads are. So it's a great Ulster club out there. It's a great club. It's so professionally run, and as Cathal says, it's an opportunity when you're young. If you turn it down, you regret it. But anybody that's ever been out, it's been a fantastic experience.
I'd say your summer was even more interesting, the fact that Brendan McVeigh was with you.
Yeah, it was more eventful than normal, So still have good memories of that.
Is it true what they say then, John? All goalkeepers are mad.
Very true.
well, just maybe, before we finish, man, obviously immigration, we're talking about immigration. There's two guys that have left our shores to set up a new life for themselves in Australia in a professional sense, and obviously close to both your hearts, in the fact that John, your brother Martin, and obviously Cathal, you've taught both the lads, Martin, Clarke and Cathal Mooney. You've had the luxury of teaching two special footballers, Cathal.
I remember Martin as a youngster. We used to run a primary school tournament, and I think Martin as a P5 was the standout player in that tournament, and for P7s, so Martin was just from an early age was just immense, and the attitude, how hard he worked at his game, and it's an absolute pleasure to work with. John wasn't bad either, to be honest.
Thanks, John.
And but certainly, you could see from a young age how special he was, and once again, he's had a second chance to get back to Australia to give it a go. He came back home. He went for his Ireland, went down, it didn't come off, and he's gone back, and he's getting tough the minute, saying that, he's been up and down there. He's been in the first team, he's dropped down to the VFL, showed his true colours by being one of the standout players, and certainly will be pushing hard for the finals as a starting player for Collingwood.
And what about Keelan? Cal, obviously you had spent a bit of time at St Coleman's with Keelan there, terrific athlete.
Unreal. It's probably the fastest player I'd seen since myself. as a
and you were fast,
I was flying. He was once again great attitude again, nothing, genuine, down to earth fella. Even though he knew maybe the last few months that he was going to Australia, didn't affect his demeanour in any way. He continued to work hard. It was just he probably was the key in our Hogan wins, in that when you needed that big score, the big catch, something inspirational, he was the man who did it and delivered.
And he's doing it in Australia, because I think we've a video clip here of him scoring his debut goal for Collingwood.
Yeah. Jacobs the tap. Blair though, he's another one who's into the Collingwood side tonight. Pendlebury, and it got through to Dawes. So smart stuff, brilliant work charging through. We saw some good work from Mooney last week, and that was fantastic stuff.
It was a great handball by Chris Dawes. It needed the youngster to be able to shrug the tackle, and Brenton Sanderson won't be all that pleased.
I mean, I think the game suits Caelan. He can take maybe 10 or 12 steps there, and the distance that man can cover with the speed that he has really suited. So his ball skills are improving as well. So
very explosive player. I suppose, John, yourself, I got talking to your mother and father at the Fermanagh game this year, and they were saying it was the first time in a number of years, that they can't remember a down team that they were going to without yourself or Martin in it. But it must have been a special moment for yourself and your family, for you to actually line out in the All-Ireland final with your brother playing at centre half forward and corner forward, but moving out and you in the same team. It must have been a special feeling.
There's no doubt, Steve. It was a great privilege, and probably it won't happen again now, but just unfortunately didn't get the result on the day. But that whole 2010 experience with Martin being home and all was fantastic, and it's something that will probably live long in the memory. Unfortunately, as I said, we didn't get the result, but he's gone back now, and he's he has put the hard work in. It was in his head to go back and try and make another go of it, and I think he's played 16 out of 18 games. Collingwood's such a top side, you know, it's so hard to keep your place. It's like the Manchester United of the AFL, you know, so he is pushing hard, and he hopefully will get back in the team now coming up to finals, when is the key part of the season. So him along with Keelan as well.
Yeah, and what lies ahead for John Clarke then? You know, the football, maybe the county football's over in another couple of years, obviously given to the club. Like, can you see yourself, John, maybe going down the line of coaching? Or
yeah, it's hard to know. I'm still enjoying my club football and that yet, and I still think I'm young enough to keep it at it for another 3 or 4 years, and who knows what happens county wise and that. I would never say never with it as well, you know, but coaching is something I'd always look at, and take tips from likes yourself there, Stevie, one of the best coaches about at the minute. But it is something I would enjoy, you know, and maybe 3 or 4 years down the line, who knows, get in with maybe a club like Cathal is at the minute, and I'm working my way up. It's something that I would enjoy now.
Well, Cathal obviously being the second best coach in the room the other day. Like, you had 2 fantastic back-to-back successes, Cathal, with your schools and Coleman's, you know, Hogan Cup successes, and I was fortunate enough myself to win an All-Ireland vocational schools in 2007 with Kilkeel, St Clement's Kilkeel, and it's a special feeling, you know, winning an All-Ireland title with the lads you see every day of the week, and people probably don't really, you know, fully understand how often or how much time you have with these guys, you know, and it is a special feeling. Obviously, you know, it was a terrific achievement, Cathal, wasn't it? You know,
it was. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, as much as maybe, you know, I'm not sure who's long you, Stevie, but I mean, the backroom staff that we had, you know, the 4 of us who worked together, myself and Declan Musson, Eamon McAvoy and Barry Kelly, it took all 4 of us, because it's such a massive commitment. You're talking about from September, 3 days a week, every Saturday, and maybe 3 days over Halloween, 5 or 6 days over Christmas, Easter holidays, and it takes that, because way back when I was playing at the college, we were winning things. Other schools maybe weren't putting as much time into it as we were then. Now the ante's been pushed up, that everyone is putting in such a massive effort, that there is a fine line, and it takes the special players. You know, your Chris Clarkson, your Cale Mooney's, your Jerome Johnsons, your Tony McGreevy's, or Niall Donnelly, boys like that, who were such an inspiration. And you've the likes of, you know, you've Conor Goff there and Niall McBarn, who've both been on to represent the county as well. So it takes a special breed of player, a lot of work. I mean, John knows himself there. Like we maybe struggled with at St Louis at the time. We were at a level where it was difficult. Maybe we were sort of just trying to create a niche for ourselves, but certainly it took a big effort. And as John, I think it was '98, we won the first B title with the Brother Ennis Cup and stuff like that. So, you know, schools football, I just love it. You get so much out of it, and such a kick. Yeah,
and like, despite the fact that people maybe just, you know, need to be aware too, there's other schools doing the same work and maybe not getting the same success, you know, and that's what fills me with hope for the future of Down football. There's a lot of work going on in schools in Down, you know, and across the whole of the county, and you know, I think Down football's in safe hands, and I think, you know, maybe in the next few years we'll see some of the talent coming through that you've mentioned, Cathal, you know. But I think we'll finish off on that, and I would like to thank Cathal and John for coming here today, and good afternoon to everybody.